So, this video is about Greek mythology. The colouring you can see here in the background is to attract different types of audiences. So, today we're going over Zeus, Poseidon, Apollo, Aphrodite, Hermes, and possibly some more, I can't quite remember. Not in that order. Shall we get into Zeus? Okay, so we're beginning with, as I just said, the Greek god Zeus, who is known as Jupiter in Roman myths and Tinia in Etruscan myths. In Hesiod's Theogony, in circa 730 to 700 BCE, or before Common Era, Cronus, after castrating his father Uranus, becomes supreme ruler of the cosmos, impressive title there, and weds his sister, Rhea, by whom he begets 3 daughters and 3 sons, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and lastly, the wise Zeus, who was the youngest of the 6. And by the way, if you think that Cronus marrying Rhea is bad, bear in mind, we're going to see later on that Gaia and Uranus are the parents of Rhea and Cronus, and Gaia is Uranus' mother. So just bear that in mind. Anyways, back to Cronus. Cronus swallows each child as soon as they're born, because he received a prophecy from his parents, Gaia and Uranus, mother and son, that one of his own children is destined to one day overthrow him as he overthrew his own father. This causes Rhea unceasing grief, and upon becoming pregnant with her 6th child, Zeus, she approaches her parents, Gaia and Uranus, seeking a plan to save her child and bring retribution to Cronus. Following her parents' instructions, she travels to Lyctus in Crete, where she gives birth to Zeus, after handing the newborn child over to Gaia for her to raise, and then Gaia takes him to a cave on Mount Aegeum, and Rhea then gives Cronus, in the place of the child, a stone which he had wrapped in swaddling clothes. This is then promptly swallowed, as Cronus is unaware that the rock is not his son. I mean, if you've eaten 5 children already, surely you'd notice based on the taste? But to be fair, I've never eaten 5 children, I wouldn't know. While Hesiod gives Lyctus as Zeus's birthplace, he's the only source to do so, and other authors give different locations. The poet Eumelus of Corinth, 8th century BC, according to John the Lydian, considered Zeus to have been born in Lydia, while the Alexandrian poet Callimachus, circa 310 to 240 BC, in his hymn to Zeus, says that he was born in Arcadia. Diodorus Siculus, in the 1st century BC, seems at one point to give Mount Ida as his birthplace, but later states he is born in Dicte. In the mythographer Apollodorus, 1st and 2nd AD, similarly says he was born in a cave in Dicte. While the Theogony says nothing of Zeus's upbringing other than that he grew up fast, don't all kids, honestly, other sources provide more detailed accounts. According to Apollodorus, Rhea, after giving birth to Zeus in a cave in Dicte, gives him to the nymphs Adrastia and Ida, the daughters of Melicius, to nurse. They feed him on the milk of the she-goat Amalthea, while the Curettes guard the cave and beat their spears on their shields so Cronus cannot hear the infant crying. Diodorus Siculus provides similar account, saying after giving birth, Rhea travels to Mount Ida and gives the newborn Zeus to the Curettes, who then takes him to some nymphs, who are unnamed, who raise him on a mix of honey and milk from the goat Amalthea. He also refers to the Curettes as raising a great alarum, and in doing so, deceiving Cronus, and relates that the Curettes were carrying the newborn Zeus, that while the Curettes were carrying the newborn Zeus, the umbilical cord fell away at the river Traton. Well, I guess they didn't have to cut umbilical cords back then, because they just fall right off. Hyginus, in his Fabulae, relates a version in which Cronus casts Poseidon into the sea, and Hades to the underworld, instead of swallowing them. When Zeus is born, Hera, who's also not swallowed, asks Rhea to give her the young Zeus, and Rhea gives Cronus a stone to swallow. Hera gives him to Amalthea, who hangs his cradle from a tree, where he is not in heaven, on earth, or in the sea. So that when Cronus later goes looking for the child, inevitably, he is unable to find him. Just look in the trees. Hyginus also says that Ida, Amalthea, and Adrastia, usually considered children of Oceanus, are sometimes called daughters of Melicius and nurses of Zeus. After his childhood, so after the 10-year Titanomachy, Zeus went on to marry Hera, who was the goddess of marriage, and is also the father of Athena, Ares, Hermes, Apollo, Artemis, Aphrodite, according to some accounts, and Hercules. He's also the father of many, many more, but those are the most notable. But to be fair, again, we couldn't say all of Zeus's kids because, well, he gets around town. Zeus gets around town. Mortals, gods, doesn't matter. Anyways, Zeus and his brothers, were, well, some accounts say that they drew lots, others say that they were given their roles by the fates. However, either way, Zeus got the best one, which was he gained dominion and authority over the sky, and took a seat at the highest point on Mount Olympus, which is the home of the gods, located in Litakoro in Greece. Zeus is often depicted as an older man with a beard, and is represented by symbols such as the lightning bolt or the eagle. Okay, up next we're going to cover Aphrodite. Aphrodite was the goddess of sexual love, beauty, fertility. In some accounts, she's also portrayed as a goddess of marriage, although most people say that that's Hera. In ancient Rome, her name was Venus, however her Etruscan name is Chiron. She is one of the 12 Olympians and daughter of Zeus and Dione. She is, unfortunately, often depicted nude. That's gotta be uncomfortable, even for a goddess of, like, you know, sexual love. That's still gotta be quite uncomfortable, surely. She is said to have once been married to the god of fire and metalwork, Hephaestus. However, she later cheated on him for Ares. They really do always go for the tough boys, huh? The etymology of her name is unknown, though it's often believed to be of Semitic origins. For example, the Greek poet Hesiod derived her name from Aphros, meaning sea foam. This is due to some accounts stating she had risen from the sea foam where she was born. She was born from the sea foam, formed when Cronus threw the genitals of Uranus, the previous god of the sky before Zeus, in the sea after having castrated him. Aphrodite is said to have been born near the chief centre of worship, Paphos, which is on the island of Cyprus. This is why she is often called Cyprian, especially in the poetic works of Sappho. In myths, Aphrodite is sometimes depicted as the daughter of Zeus and Dione, and other times depicted as having formed from Uranus's castrated genitals. Okay. Dione was one of the female titans, and she and Zeus had a shared cult in which they were both worshipped. One myth surrounding Aphrodite is when King Cinyras inadvertently angered Aphrodite by claiming his daughter Myra had more beauty than even Aphrodite herself. This This had angered the self-centered, vain goddess, and as vengeance, she'd had her son, Eros, assist in having Myra fall desperately in love with her own father. Can Greek mythology just stop being full of incest? Like, I like Greek mythology, don't get me wrong, but, like, incest. To be fair, this is before, like, Darwin, so before they knew that incest led to bad stuff. But anyway, yeah. She had Eros assist in having Myra fall desperately in love with her own father, impelled by insatiable life. As the spell took effect, Myra tricked her own father into consummating the union. This led to her bearing a child, a baby boy. Upon learning of the betrayal, the king threatened to kill her. To be fair, actually, wait, no, it says he was tricked. Never mind. In order to save herself and the child, she begged the gods to turn her into something that wasn't human. The gods listened to this wish, turning her into a myrrh tree? I don't know. Incredibly, 9 months later, the tree split open, and out came a baby boy. This child was named Adonis. Watching this, a now regretful Aphrodite fell in love with Adonis. So now you regret it? When a tree just gave birth? Okay. She sent him to Persephone to raise, to ensure his safety and protection. However, over this time, Persephone fell in love with Adonis. Persephone turned Minth into a mint because Hades cheated on her with Minth. So, a bit hypocritical as she's falling in love with Adonis. But, you know, she then proceeded to refuse to return the boy. So Zeus ruled Adonis would, wait, what? That is not accurate. That cannot be right. That is not what signifies the change of season. Okay, something in my research is wrong, so I'm just going to skim past that. Or at least I think it's wrong, because that, it says here, yeah, this is what happens when you source your research from, sources that maybe you should have done it somewhere else. So I'm just going to skim past that. It's believed Adonis died after a boar attack, after having angered Artemis and then been resurrected as the god of resurrection. Wait, so who resurrected him if he's the god of resurrection now? Anyway, other accounts show that his death, the cause of his death was Ares, who turned into a boar, his signature animal, due to jealousy of Aphrodite loving Adonis more than him. So why didn't Hephaestus get attacked? Up next, third, is Poseidon, the elder brother of Zeus, who's the lord of the seas, earthquakes, and horses. He is married to Aphrodite, the goddess of the sea, and one of between 50 to 100 Nereids, or sea nymphs, and children of Nereus. Poseidon has many children, such as Theseus, Triton, Arion, Polyphemus, Orion, Belus, Agenor, Neleus, Atlas, Pegasus, and many more. When he was born, Poseidon was eaten, like many of his siblings before, by Cronus. Upon being regurgitated, just before the, Titanomachy, one of the two most commonly mentioned 10-year wars of Greek mythology, famous Greek authors such as Homer and Hesiod suggest Poseidon, Hades, and Zeus drew lots to determine who would get what part of the universe. Poseidon got the sea, though all three of them share Earth and Olympus. In Homer's Iliad, it said that Poseidon assisted the Greeks in the Trojan War. However, by the Odyssey, Odysseus had invoked his fury by blinding Polyphemus. This led to the god creating massive storms, which led to the loss of Odysseus' ship and companions, which delayed Odysseus' return by 10 years. That's got a sting for Penelope, surely. I mean, like, imagine you're just, like, you know, every other army in Greece are home, safe, and your husband's still not here. And you're still raising your son on your own until he reaches the age of 20. Anyways, in the Socratic dialogue, Timaeus and Cretius from Plato, Poseidon's domain was the city of legend, Atlantis. Bear in mind, this is all my own research. It may be inaccurate, so feel free to do your own research. This may be wrong. Anyway, another thing Poseidon is known for is contesting with the other gods, such as the competition with Athena on who the patron god of the city of Athens would be. However, when this competition was lost, he sent devastating floods to punish the people of Athens for not choosing him, and instead choosing Athena. Though this isn't the only occurrence of a competition with Poseidon to be the patron god of a city. For example, the city of Trojan, where he and guess who fought to have possession of the city. Did you guess that, Athena? Well done. You don't get a prize, but you get a round of applause. Anyway, this went on until Zeus ruled that they could share the city. Poseidon is considered to be one of the more temperamental and moody and greedy gods of ancient Greek mythology. He's got a very violent nature, such as when he had storms to shipwreck Odysseus' ship as punishment for blinding Polyphemus. Poseidon's temperament is akin to the qualities of emotional tempestuousness, which he elicits within us, and he's said to be ill-tempered, baleful, jealous, and always unsatisfied. Poseidon is known to be quite intimate, not unlike his brother. An example of this is when he raped Medusa on the floors of Athena's temple. When Athena returned to her temple, discovering it had been defiled, she did not blame her rival and fellow god. She blamed the human. She blamed the victim. Athena then cursed Medusa to become a Gorgon. However, some accounts do say that this may have been to protect Medusa rather than punish. But either way, due to becoming a Gorgon, Medusa gained the ability, or curse, to turn anyone who looked into her eyes to stone. Apollo, the god of archery, music and dance, truth, prophecy, healing, diseases, the sun, light and poetry, is the son of Zeus. Yeah, we're going into Apollo now. Sorry, I should have made that more clear. Anyway, he is the only Olympian god who I couldn't find a Roman counterpart for. He's one of the more complex yet vital Greek gods. In the Greek-influenced Etruscan mythology, he is known as Apollo. They didn't change it much, did they? Apollo. Anyway, he's the twin brother of Artemis, who's the goddess of the hunt, wilderness, wild animals, nature, vegetation, childbirth, care of children, and chastity. Apollo is the patron god of Delphi, and is thus an oracular god. He is the prophetic deity of the Delphic oracle, and also the deity of ritual purification. His oracles were often consulted for guidance in various matters. He's considered to be the most beautiful god, while Aphrodite was seen as the most beautiful goddess. He's seen as the god who affords help and wards off evil, and is referred to as Alexakis, which means averter of evil. This title was one given to many gods, such as Zeus and Apollo and Heracles. Heracles being the Greek name for Hercules. Hercules is Roman. Apollo is said to have ended the plague which was raging the town of Athens during the Peloponnesian War. However, he's also said to be a bringer of plagues, such as the Odyssey, when Agamemnon holds Chrysis as a prisoner of war, and Chrysis was the daughter of a priest of Apollo. This priest attempted to ransom his daughter, but he was disrespected. This angered Apollo, who sent a plague among the Greeks, which continued for 9 days until they returned Chrysius to the priest and offered sufficient offerings to Apollo as apology. Medicine and healing are associated with Apollo. However, through himself or his son Asclepius, that varies between myths. One myth surrounding Apollo is that of a satyr, Marcius, who found a double-ended flute which was abandoned by Athena. All in the forest would come to hear him play, and Marcius would claim he was the best in all the world. Eventually, he got too cocky and claimed he was better than Apollo. Upon hearing this, Apollo was angered and challenged Marcius to a musical competition. He declared whoever won could do whatever he pleased to the loser. There are many accounts of this tale, but here are 5. In the first, Marcius played his flute beautifully. However, when Apollo played his lyre, he was simply better, and as Marcius had even dared to compare his own music to Apollo's, he was skinned alive and hung from an olive tree. The second account says the contest was to sing and play at the same time, with the flute needing the mouth to play and the lyre stringed. This was impossible for Marcius to win. He was, again, skinned alive, hung from an olive tree. Third account says that the contest was judged by Minos, a close friend of Marcius. In this account, Minos declared Marcius as the better musician, and Apollo, outraged, gave Minos donkey ears for daring to say his music was not as beautiful as that of a mere satyr. Marcius was, can you guess, skinned alive, hung from an olive tree. The fourth account states that the first round was drawn, and the second round was to play upside down, which was, again, impossible for a flute, but simple for a lyre. Marcius again lost, and was skinned alive and hung from an olive tree. Aren't olive trees meant to be a symbol of Athena? Why does Apollo like olive trees? Why does he like skinning this satyr alive and hanging him from an olive tree in all of these accounts? The final account we'll view states that instead it was actually Pan, god of wild shepherds, flocks, rustic music, and impromptus, companion of the nymphs, who challenged Apollo. He played the bagpipes, which still could not be played while singing or upside down. Alright, now let's move on from Marcius and Apollo. So, did you know Apollo was bisexual? He had a love for Cassandra of Troy, who was the daughter of King Priam and his lover Hecuba, and he loved her, so gave her the gift of prophecy. However, she still disliked him, and so he cursed her, so nobody would believe her foretellings. She foretold the fall of Troy, and nobody believed her. During the final fight of Troy, Ajax the Lesser raped Cassandra inside the temple of Athena. What is with Athena's temples always being the location of this stuff? First Medusa and now Cassandra? Jesus Christ, oh my gods. When tried in court, the Greeks forgave Ajax. Athena, furious this defilement went unpunished, got Zeus and Poseidon to assist in killing the judges. In the end, Cassandra foretold the murder of Agamemnon by his own wife, who was in the midst of an affair. Agamemnon, of course, as usual, did not believe her, and when he arrived home, he was murdered by his wife, Clytemnestra, and her affair partner, Aegisthus. In this event, Cassandra was also killed. He also had a male lover in the Prince of Sparta, Hyacinth. Hyacinth was loved by Zephyros, god of the west wind, spring, fertility, procreation, flowers, bees, luck, rebirth. To win over Hyacinth, both Apollo and Zephyrus would throw a discus. The god who flew it further would win Hyacinth's love. However, Apollo threw it further than Zephyrus. Despite this, Hyacinth was killed when a discus hit Hyacinth in the head. Many accounts say this was Zephyrus' own jealousy. To honour the passing of his beloved prince, Apollo made Hyacinth's blood into the beautiful hyacinth flowers. A similar tale also occurred when Apollo loved Cyparissus, the son of Telephus. When Cyparissus indirectly killed the stag Apollo had gifted him, he was so devastated he asked for the gods to make him cry forever. Due to this, he became a cypress tree, which had sap which resembled tear-like droplets. The tree later became symbolic for mourning. He often appears in the company of the Muses. Animals sacred to Apollo include rhodea, swans, cicadas, hawks, ravens, crows, foxes, mice, and snakes. When people think Apollo, they often think the sun, and for good reason. However, while Apollo was a sun god, he did not, contrary to popular belief, he did not personify the sun. That role was taken by the Greek titan Helios. Apollo is often depicted riding the sun chariot across the horizon, creating sunrise. He is also revered as the god of light, not only for bringing sunlight to the world, but also for symbolizing truth and reason. He was often associated with enlightenment, both literally through the sun and metaphorically through wisdom and prophecy. Alright, yep, that is all the gods we are covering today. If you're here for the artwork, I will now put that just on screen now. I'll show you the completed piece. Thank you so much for watching, and good day, good night, good evening. Depends when or where you're watching this. So, bye.